The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Big Ben Haslar is presiding. We all rise for the Honorable Judge Haslar. Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus Nothing But Trouble, a 1991 comedy horror film about a group of yuppies that are arrested for speeding and held captive by a sadistic judge and his bizarre backwoods family. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Now, I just want to give both counselors fair warning that the judge and courthouse depicted in today's film is a work of fiction and should not reflect how the court proceedings will proceed today. Although there have been occasional singing here, and you are standing on a trapdoor that leads directly to movie hell, and I'm pretty sure the bailiff is living somewhere in the building.
Hey, and I'm Tupac.
Mr. Dillon. None of you are Tupac. That's right. That's the difference.
I am Tupac.
No, I'm Tupac.
Mr. Dylan Tupac Schlender, you are appearing on behalf of the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
It's Tupac
thank you.
because that's how many cigarettes he smokes every day.
No one wants to be Humpty Hump? That's disappointing.
No, I'm Humpty Hump.
There it is.
Okay, settle down, everyone. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. And wait, I'm not giving the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen of the court, about the only good thing I could say about this movie is that the title is apt. Nothing But Trouble is indeed nothing but trouble. From snout to tail, this is an ungainly beast that does not succeed at anything but demonstrably fails at almost every turn. Starting at the top, we have Dan Aykroyd as director and star and writer. I place myself second to no one when it comes to Dan Aykroyd fanishness, but it is because of this that a critical and unsparing eye is needed. While Aykroyd struggled with the director's duties, his cast of cats could not be herded, resulting in bland, dispassionate performances from Chevy Chase, though maybe that's a given, John Candy, ladies and gentlemen, John Candy, and while striking in looks, dull on everything else, Demi Moore. I said striking in looks and dull on everything else.
Nah.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we dive into this festering pit of a movie, we will look at many, many more shortcomings, and we will be able to use this movie as a template for what guilty movies truly are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schlender. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Counselor Divinity Humpty Hump Rose. Please present your opening statement.
Your Honor, Tupacs of the jury, I am not alone in knowing that this is actually a great film. It's loved by many as a classic, and it's typical of the 80s weird humor that you'd expect from a cast like this. It did its job as a horror film by scaring the ever-living daylights out of me when I saw it because I was living on the side of a mountain in Virginia while I was working on a film, and I lived 6 miles further out from a sign that said population 36. Now, I might as well have said we're all family here, and this film played too closely to my own fears of what I was seeing in that town for it to not be a successful horror film and leave me feeling so distressed that almost 20 years later, I originally planned to prosecute it as a bad film. But watching it with a clear head, it became clear my own judgment had just been clouded by the disturbance to my own young, sheltered peace. Any movie that starts with a man in an elevator saying thanks for the espresso maker and a bag of shit and means the actual dog shit he's just been handed as if that's normal is a good movie. Dudes are always acting like nothing is a big deal when they're with a pretty girl and want to win her favor, and that was a brilliant start. So I will be proving today that it's actually a good film and that the prosecutor has no case.
Take that.
Thank you, Miss Rose. Mr. Schlender, do you have a case? Present your first exhibit.
If I had no case, we could go home. This would be easy. All right. I would like to begin at the beginning with Dan Aykroyd. Now, there is something to be admired about a director taking a turn behind the camera. It gave us great films like Ordinary People, Dances with Wolves, and Star Trek First Contact. Those 3 movies were all the first feature films that those actors directed. So we do have standards we can look to for actors' premier directorial debuts for movies. Jonathan Frakes obviously directing TV shows, but that's neither here nor there. So Aykroyd failing at this direction, I guess you could say that's fine. He said so himself. He never saw himself as a director, and really this movie shows us why. The burdens were far too great. The paper-thin plot, which was also written by Aykroyd, involves Chase and his new friend Demi Moore and his Spanish-speaking Brazilian friends, mind you. They should be speaking Portuguese. Going on a road trip. And they're ultimately captured by the crazy judge, who does not look a thing like the handsome judge we have presiding over the court today. And basically, you're objecting to the
objection
judgment.
is overruled.
Right
I won't even hear it.
And then the judge basically makes him sit around the rest of the movie while we wait for things to happen. There's a hip-hop number, and we're treated to gross, not gross out, mind you, just gross display. Chase and Moore slouch into a love story, and at the end, it turns out the judge doesn't get comeuppance, and Chevy Chase runs through a wall, a power that would have saved him a lot of time had he used it sooner in the film. So we have this weak story, we have this bad acting on Aykroyd's part, and we have this just awfully bad direction. Now, we have the barbarians at the gates, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. They're always coming, aren't they? And they're saying like, oh, no, this is actually a horror movie. No, it's a horror comedy. Well, you know who doesn't think it's a horror movie? The director, Dan Aykroyd. He said not once, not 3 times, but twice that this is a comedy. In a 2010 interview with New Hampshire Magazine, and then in a 2021 interview with The Hollywood Reporter, he said the same exact thing, that Nothing But Trouble is a, quote, serviceable comedy. He says that in both interviews, serviceable comedy. And he likes the cut. So he likes the cut, he says. He said it tested well. So we can't say, well, there's a Dan Aykroyd cut out there, because that doesn't exist. This is the cut he's liked and that he endorses. And he says the reason the movie was not successful was because of its release date, because it had to go up against better movies. So it's strange credulity. He claims it was because it came out against Silence of the Lambs and then a Julia Roberts movie. He never actually said specifically which Julia Roberts movie it is. I'd probably be able to look it up. But
good in everything.
It could have been Sleeping with the Enemy. That sounds right. Thank you, Ryan. Let's just say it's Sleeping with the Enemy. I mean, the point is, too, it's not like a particularly huge movie that wiped everything else off the charts the way like Silence of the Lambs would have. So Aykroyd is already giving us his own standards, and he admitting that he failed to meet them, hoping that this would find an audience on DVD. And every once in a while, you find some people out there saying, oh, this is actually a cult movie. But this is not a cult movie, ladies and gentlemen. Like Rocky Horror Picture Show is a cult movie. People go to the movie theater in costume and throw toilet paper at the screen. No one goes to Comic-Cons dressed up as a judge with a penis for a nose.
Yet.
That's true. Yeah, not yet.
Ain't gonna happen.
Do you have any comments about Aykroyd's directing ability or his aims for the film?
Well, I want to say that whether or not he was a good director isn't what I want to address there. It's whether it was a comedy or a horror. And I have a terrible time saying the word horror without making sure I say at the end, or otherwise it sounds like we're debating horrors. The idea is that horror plays to the things in our psyches that are disturbing or are natural fears of ours, and this definitely does that. The fear of small towns tracks, where it's this remote location where there's no rational point of authority, or the points of authority are ones where the law officers are buddies with the locals and they're just absolutely batshit crazy, and you're helpless to regain control or escape. And that in itself is terrifying, and yet there's a wackiness to it that definitely adds more comedy than a straight horror film. Now, it's absolutely listed as a horror comedy when you look it up online and when you go to watch it. And I think that's really what the aim was for. Thank you. I think that's really what the aim was for. Maybe he said in an interview, while you're in front of somebody on the spot, oh yeah, it's a comedy. Well, it's a horror comedy, and that is clear, and that's clear in the topic. Just like you could say Shaun of the Dead is a comedy, but it's still a horror comedy.
Well, we can look at other horror comedies that actually succeed in both the horror and the comedy. Shaun of the Dead, like you said, Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2. Hell, I'll even throw in the Ghostbusters 2016. Let's get controversial today, ladies and gentlemen. But the point is that in Nothing But Trouble, these are all played towards laughs. Look at everyone who is cast in this. You're not casting these people for a horror movie. You have Dan Aykroyd, you have Chevy Chase, you have Demi Moore, you have the other guy, John Candy. I couldn't believe I was forgetting his name. And these are all comedy actors, and everything is played into being ridiculous and over the top. It's not about this foreboding sense of isolation, because they're actually able to get away pretty easy, and they're basically able to bring the whole state and National Guard down them at the end. And then it turns out they're all friends with the judge for some reason anyway. But don't worry, everything blows up for, quote, some reason. So they're able to get away. They're able to survive. There's no stakes in this movie. But I would like to move on to my next point about John Candy, if I may, Your Honor.
Please.
So I would like to zoom in on John Candy's character, Officer Dennis, because I think it's illustrative of all the problems with the other characters, but I found John Candy's to be the most fertile for this conversation. And we learned Dennis is the chief constable and the grandson of the odious judge. And for reasons that are never made clear, unfortunately, mind you, never made clear, Dennis wants the judge to go easy on Chase's gang, despite their rampant disregard for public safety. We're not talking just running the stop sign here. We're talking a high-speed pursuit on a busy road with trucks. Any one of those trucks could have swerved off the road, killing someone. They could have crashed. John Candy could have crashed. I mean, this was reckless endangerment to the umpteenth degree, but for some reason, he doesn't want the judge to charge them like that. Like, what an interesting turn. Why is this? Because clearly there's enough corpses there to fill an old mansion. Now we contrast this when he pulls over the Baldwin brother and his gang with the two floozies and his drug dealer buddy.
Floozies?
And he shows absolutely no compulsion or compunction, or another word that would be appropriate, about them being sentenced to death right in front of him. Just lets it happen. So it completely undoes anything that might have been growing that we didn't even know why it was growing, right? And then we see him help the Brazilianaires escape, and he packs his bags and absconds from the movie. Why? What motivated him? It was so interesting, I think, to see him look at the picture of himself as a Marine, right? Was there something in his background of service that spurred him on? I mean, obviously he wasn't brave enough to stand up to his grandfather in any meaningful way or sabotage him in any meaningful way. He just flees. And so it's a tremendous missed opportunity to show character growth, to actually put some stakes and some tension into this movie. And of course, it's not only John Candy who has no growth. Chevy Chase is still a jerk. Demi Moore doesn't grow at all. She just randomly falls in love.
Right?
No, yeah, exactly. This is true, Your Honor. It's very easy to get Chevy Chase's character mixed up with Chevy Chase the man. He doesn't have a tremendous amount of range, but he's not on trial here. His performance it doesn't work well in this movie. Demi Moore just falling in love with him for some reason after he's been a jerk and she was mad at him. None of this stuff adds up. None of this stuff makes sense. Here's another example. Moore is held hostage by the disgusting baby twins, right? And seemingly she's working them over to help her out. Goes nowhere. They still tie her up and they're going to chop her to death, even though they specifically say they don't want to. So again, there's no growth, there's no development at all. Okay. And none of these character choices affect the outcome of the movie. It's just always luck and happenstance that moves things along. And it's a tremendously wasted opportunity, and it's very sad. Okay,
Defense Counselor Rhodes, is there any growth here that we're missing?
Yeah, well, I don't know about growth. I do know that he brought up Demi Moore falls in love with Chevy Chase's character, and I don't know that she really falls in love with him, but even though
she falls
he's a
in
jerk,
like with him at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, love and attraction are irrational, and
They get pretty hot and heavy.
that or toxic lovers can be the best sex you've ever had. I encourage you to try it if you haven't. But what he mentioned was how bad the love affair was, and that Diane knows he's a jerk. Well, if you watch, she's actually pretty good the entire film throughout by avoiding negative situations by portraying that she's down for whatever for the other people, but then she doesn't follow through. So in this case, she acts super into him in the moment that it comes down to them making out. That kind of strokes his ego, but then she gets herself out of it by still stroking his ego, saying he's nothing but trouble, but walking away and leaving him confused. So, I mean, this is how women, you may not understand this, but women pine with lust for dicks. I mean, let me rephrase that. Women lust after the jerks. But that being said, it's clear that he's a lovable jerk and not a dick to her directly, only a dick to situations where he feels screwed, like with the judge. And a lot of men tend to react that way anyways. But he doesn't really ever do anything too dickish directly to her.
Oh, no, I'm a colossal jerk and women love me. I understand all that. I'm just saying, it just... You can't object from the jury. Sit down. Sit down. Put away that giant foam finger. Put that away. Anyway, my point is that it just makes Demi Moore, this irrational female stereotype?
No, I didn't say she's irrational. I said love and attraction are irrational.
Yeah, and it's completely on her side. It's one-sided. Chase gets to stay cool, calm, and collected the whole time. I'm not buying into your sexist argument. I'm not buying into the sexism.
Order in my court. Order in my court. Defense
Your Honor, I would like to move on to my final point.
I want to hear the defense finish up.
Yeah, do you have a rebuttal to this?
Yeah, it was that she doesn't actually fall in love with him. She doesn't. She does what she does with the judge. She does what she does with the other two dudes. She acts super into him, and then she leaves him hanging.
They're clearly intimate at the end of the movie when she doesn't have to be with him anymore. So that argument does not hold water.
Yeah.
Okay, prosecution, you may proceed with your exhibit.
All right, thank you. So having touched on Dan Aykroyd's failures as a director, writer, actor, focusing in on, the terrible character situations here. I mean, let's just look broadly here at the tone of the movie. What is this mess of a movie supposed to be? Not funny enough to really be a comedy, not scary enough to be horror, and just gross, and not even gross out a body horror level or anything like that. More like the way it's gross when an old man sneezes on the bus and his spittle coats the window and a line of snot lingers in his mustache. This movie has tremendous difficulties moving the plot forward because of it. It relies on these contrivances that are neither funny nor scary. They're just supremely convenient. The things just happen so Chase can move on and be a jerk in the next scene. We do not feel the stakes at all. I mean, would it matter at all if the quote-unquote heroes, please note the square quotes, die or live? I mean, do we loathe the judge so much that we crave his bill comes due at the end of the movie for him to pay the piper? And if you say yes, it doesn't happen, so there's no catharsis there. The movie fails to build up any meaningful tension and has the feeling of air slowly escaping from a balloon and just putters on to the credits. And I'll rest there.
Okay. Defense counselor, do you have a rebuttal, or would you like to proceed with a different exhibit?
No, I'll just go into my exhibits if that's possible.
It is indeed.
All right, great. So, it's funny he says about so disgusting, an old man on the bus and he sneezes. Well, I mean, do we want life to be good or do we want it to be entertaining? I mean, if I'm riding the bus, I'm already saying things aren't great. So the thing keeping them from being bad, in my opinion, would be for it to be interesting or entertaining. Now, like I said in my opening statements, I'm not alone. I posted to Facebook about this film and whether I should prosecute or defend it, and a flood of posts came in supporting the film, honoring it as a classic. And if a film's job is to entertain people, then it's achieved its goal. Because only one person believed it should be prosecuted. Everybody else was very adamant about how entertaining they found the film and how much they enjoyed it, and still to this day enjoy it.
But for being good because it's good, not good because it's bad.
No, they enjoy it, right? So that means it's not bad. We're not debating whether it's a good film or not. We're debating if it's a bad movie or not. And there's a lot of gray area between good and bad, I think.
That is true.
So,
yes, but this does kind of get into that quote-unquote so bad it's good kind of territory that a lot of people are very comfortable with nowadays, and we don't cotton to in this courtroom, I'm afraid.
Well, no, then it should, though. If it's so bad it's good, then it's good.
No, it's bad. Bad is the operative word.
That has been established in this courtroom.
All right. Well, moving forward, Exhibit B is the art department on this was amazing. I think when I went back and watched it, the thought that went into the automated sets and props controlled by the madman were just tremendous. The design and thought that went into all of the moving parts, and you say there's no character development, but there is, because he's an engineer and he says that right off the bat, and here he's taken that to this mad place. So the compound in this
but the judge doesn't develop as a character. He doesn't learn or grow or anything. I mean, that in a way, that's kind of the point of his character, is that he's 101 years old and ossified. So there's no development there. He just is.
Yeah, that's true. There's no character development in the manner of growth as a person. I misunderstood character development, meaning like they just didn't get into the details of developing the characters very well and giving them depth, which they do, because when you're going in, you have this Chevy Chase noticed that they're piping in music. There's signs that say be polite. At one point, the guy plays an organ, and yet he's this madman, but he's got this like fun side to him that also believes in goodness somehow. So, the characters do have more depth, at least the judge does. Maybe not Chevy Chase's character, but the art department is amazing, and there's clearly a lot of thought and design put into that. Plus, dinner is served by a train, and that's a winner in my books. Which
Pickle
is
train.
Not
Pickle
to be
train.
confused with Aykroyd's nose in this scene, which is where it's most clearly seen as a wiener. So there's a winner.
I would say it's at the end when he's holding up Chevy Chase's license. It's unmistakable.
Oh man, it's unmistakable when he goes and takes a bite out of his hot dog, and then Chase gets that dead-on look at him, and it looks like it's just like a foreskin's been pulled back or something. It's just dead on. Which brings me to Exhibit C, Dick.
Well, if I could just address one thing about the art department, though, is they took advantage of poor Dan Aykroyd because they knew he didn't have his hands on the wheel, and they asked him for everything, and he said yes to everything, and the movie went over budget because of it. So part of the reason Dan Aykroyd has never acted again directed again, rather, was because of that art department taking advantage on him. Shame on them, I say.
That's why I don't have an organ in my judge bench here, and I'm just so infuriated about it.
Because somebody gets directing the court. They're denying the art department. I don't know, though. I think that, and this was originally called the Funhouse or something like that, right? So I think that from the get-go was just part of the film. I don't think it was necessarily the art department coming in and saying, "Oh, we need a roller coaster of death." That was probably part of the script from the get-go.
No, that was actually their idea. The original movie, I think it was called Get. So, there's a lot of weird stuff about the history of this movie and the alleged 5 years it took Dan Aykroyd to, quote-unquote, write this. I don't...
You may continue, defense counselor.
Thank you. So we were talking about winners and wieners, and that brings me to Exhibit C, which is Dick Nose. Anything where someone has a dick on their face that isn't rated XXX has accomplished something special. Not to mention this is another bit. We were talking about your term character development, more about growth, but this is another side of character for him where his control issues have reason now, like the reason for his madness, because anybody who grew up hearing "Hey, Dick Nose" all the time is certain to have a need for like controlling their environment and needing to have vengeance. So that's just another way that this film makes sense to me, and the characters actually do have reasons for the way they are. Exhibit D is that it has an appearance by Digital Underground, and that like
out of nowhere.
Yeah, it is out of nowhere, but it's not out of nowhere because they're bringing people in. They brought the other people in and they put through the roller coaster. So he gave us the opportunity to see somebody brought in that he does let go because he connects with them through music. And, Digital Underground holds good memories for me. When I was in high school, I was in a traveling show of Cinderella, and my friends and I, who were in the show, were on a bus traveling to elementary schools, and we pooled our lunch money together to buy a cassette tape of Freaks of the Industry and rode around to elementary schools singing out these crazy lyrics. So when I saw that, it evoked that memory. But when this came out, it would have evoked the popularity of the time. And it's not unusual for a movie to have music video. I mean, maybe it's not happening all the time, but it's happened before for a movie to have a music group pop in or have a music group like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 had Vanilla Ice, and they did the ninja rap.
I'm convinced.
Go ninja, go ninja, go.
Go ninja, go ninja,
right, you remember, right? So it's not like this is the only movie that's ever done that. Ghostbusters has the Ghostbuster theme song in the middle of it. So
yeah, but this was an actual performance in the courtroom that he asked them to do. It broke up the flow of the movie. I mean, there was no flow of the movie, so there's really nothing to break up. Why not throw it in?
Well, there you go.
It certainly does not help the movie, though.
Right. Well, I mean, the Ninja Turtles, there was a performance of Vanilla Ice going on. So
yeah, that wasn't great either. Not a strong pull, I would say.
All right. Well, then I'll move on to my next exhibit.
Please.
From what I understand, there was a lot cut out of this film, and I think wasn't it over like 2 hours long originally? I believe they managed to do some tremendous turd polishing to make this to be a cohesive story, and not only that, it seems to have an underlying message about the impact Maine has on a town and its people, because it has foreshadowing even them going through the creepy town before they even get pulled over. And then it flows with the correct timing of a screenplay. And if you look at screenplay structure and screenwriting books that tell you what your structure should be like and that certain things should happen at certain times, in this, the characters are set up. They leave their familiar environment. There's an inciting incident. They move into unfamiliar territory. They face trials. They seem to get ahead, but when they're released from the attic, but then they run into more trials. They do manage to escape. You said easily, but that's not true. They had to fight their way out. Chevy Chase went through his thing with the female John Candy character. Demi Moore went through almost getting chopped up or guillotined, But anyways, when they do escape, they run into this false sense of the movie resolving and being over. But then it turns out that the cops are buddies, so it's not quite the end yet. And they come back from this mystical realm with a magic power imbued in them from MC Humpty's nose and knowledge of the existence of Tupac Shakur. So they make it out alive. They return to their home environment forever changed. And then furthermore, in the end, they left it open for a sequel with him saying he wanted to come to New York City. So I rest
something but trouble.
Yeah, Joseph Campbell, step aside. We've got nothing but trouble now. Thank you. Jeez.
There you go.
Very well. Both sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Schlender, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the court, I would like to... hold on, sir. I'm sorry. Hold on, man. I'm getting a notification here.
Oh, no.
From the GobbleGoogGazette.com. Oh, dear. Your Honor, in light of how this article helps my case, I would like to read it instead of my traditional closing. From the GobbleGoogGazette...
We love Mumbly.
No. I will read it. It's a wire service.
He's coming up. Don't you worry. Mumbly's going to be back.
Mumbly. So this is from the Gobblegook Gazette Miami office, Johnny Manicotti reporting. It says, Tupac lives. After years of hiding, the rap megastar has returned from Cuba. A common conspiracy theory of many years that Tupac was living with his Aunt Aista has been confirmed with his arrival in Miami. Tupac only answered a few questions from the press, but did answer the biggest one. Why? Tupac explained. At the time, he was indeed in financial straits and worried about his legacy. But ultimately, it was the ridicule he got for appearing in Dan Aykroyd's 1991 flop, Nothing But Trouble. Yeah. Quote, I could just not take the dirty looks, the jeers, and the snickers, end quote. Tupac wiped a tear away from his eye. Quote, I had to make a change and mold my legacy, so I faked my death, and no one discusses Nothing But Trouble anymore, close quote. While not clear on why exactly he chose this moment exactly right now to come back, fans all around the world are sure to be celebrating tonight. And that was the article from the GobbleGoogGazette.com. How convenient that I should come in now. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The movie that caused Tupac to fake his own death. Let's do our duty now and find this movie guilty. Thank you.
I wonder who his followers smoked then.
I mean, the website's very buggy and full of ads, but, you know, they get a scoop every once in a while.
That's true. Miss Divinity Rose, you may present with your closing argument.
Yes, well, I do not need theatrics to make my point. I do not need to make up news sites.
But if you want to sing a song, I mean, it does help your case.
Right. Well, so, okay. The only thing I regret in this film is that they did not take that opportunity with Digital Underground, and instead of just having the judge connect with them through music and let go, instead, I wish that they would have had them make some negotiation where Humpty tried to get their freedom with their song, and when that failed, he offered up his nose for the judge. And they had some sort of nose swap or played to that with both characters. That's my only regret for this film. Can any film that evokes people to respond on the internet in its defense really be bad?
Yes.
Would I be forever scarred with the fear of small towns if it weren't for this film? That proves it was a good horror film. Now, do box office sales really determine if a movie is good or bad?
No.
Or is that the job of people on the internet we've all been waiting for opinions from? Because the people on my Facebook have spoken, and I agree with them. This may not be the best movie, but it's not a bad movie.
Thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, Mr. Robb Maynard, and Mr. All Around the World, same Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You have all heard the facts considering this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict. Now, we didn't have time to install a pickle train into the table for your luncheon, but we do have a full haggis bar. Y'all like haggis, don't you?
That is not Ryan's
Only
nickname.
With mayonnaise.
That was not Ryan's nickname.
Oh, what was the real nickname?
Hula, hula, hula. Bula, bula,
I couldn't hear
bula.
it in my head how to do it. That's how it went. I couldn't remember how it went.
Well, it's over now. All right. This fucking movie again, Ben.
That was an alternate universe where we talked about this one.
It's true, but it feels real in the multiverse of when we discussed this. But I'd like to get your opinion first, Ben. What did you think?
I personally hate this movie. I was mad that I had to watch it again. Well, I guess the first time in this real universe, this is the worst timeline. I don't know. Like it's not funny to me. It's not a horror movie. It does seem to miss its marks the whole time. And that ending where Chevy Chase just like leaves a Chevy Chase sized hole in the door is just like the final insult for me. I just don't get what this thing was doing the whole time.
Yeah, I tried to watch it this time with the mind of it being more of a horror movie because like it's an unsuccessful comedy. I mean, it never makes me laugh. It does gross me out, and it does make me really anxious.
There's one joke that makes me laugh. I think both times.
Which was?
Where he's going, oh, please God, please God, please God. Oh, thank you, Lord. That's like the one joke that got me both times.
Oh, I don't know. You know, one thing I do like about this movie? Demi Moore. Demi Moore can do no wrong, and she's a goddess in this movie. But it's otherwise a very painful movie. But I want to hear from Ryan. Ryan, I've never heard you talk about this movie, so what do you think?
I've never seen this movie before, and I'm mad that I had to watch it. But I'm madder that I had to pay for it. That's what really pissed me off. I had
like
to pay
$4,
$2.99 for this shit.
Where'd you get it?
God, Amazon Prime.
Oh, maybe it was that then.
This fucking movie. This is a horror movie, though. This is 100% a horror movie. It's like an unsuccessful Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was comparing it to today. Yeah.
And I was surprised to hear that defense from Aykroyd that this was a straight comedy, because I don't believe that to be true at all. But it's not a funny comedy. and it's not a scary horror movie. It kind of strikes this nebulous zone where it's not enough of one thing and not enough of the other. So I have no idea what the fuck to make of this movie.
It seems like it was stitched together in its entire process. Like they're just like, we need to make something. So here it is.
But the amazing thing is this is a total blank check movie. This is a studio saying to Dan Aykroyd, we have trust in you. Do whatever you want. Take as much money as you like. And this is what he came up with.
Well, I think was he not? I think he was not the original director. I think the director fell through. And
he wrote the story, so he had to be.
No, I think he wrote it. The director fell through, and he had to pick up directing duties, kind of against his will.
Regardless of who was supposed to direct it, this is a studio putting absolute trust in a talent, regardless of what that talent is doing. This is them saying to him, "We know that you can have the magic touch. So here, take whatever you want. Do this." And this is what he came up with. And I guess, I mean,
the world's interesting. It kind of feels lived in.
Great art direction. To that point, I agree with that point. The art direction is fantastic for what it is. I mean, it's a horribly unpleasant movie to watch, but you have to acknowledge that there are skilled artisans behind the camera. Whether or not that their skills are being used in any proper capacity, there are talented people working on this film.
Anyway, it looks like they were trying to get other directors. They couldn't get one on, and Aykroyd agreed to direct to secure the deal. So that is it. It's like a movie I want to like.
I agree.
Because it's got all the elements that I want, like Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, John Candy. Like, I'm ready to turn that in and laugh. And it's a fascinating little world, but like I never laugh. And then they get to the giant babies, and I kind of want to render harm.
It's an icky movie.
And the female John Candy, like everything there just is not good.
Yeah, none of that aged well.
Eating hot dogs with toast and mayonnaise is probably the worst thing for me. That is repulsive.
Yeah.
You eat hot dogs the way you want, and I'll eat them the way I want.
The Digital Underground scene probably is one of the high points of the film. Like I've been singing all around the world.
Because it's not the movie. Because it's something else.
Yes, exactly. The movie kind of stops, and we get something else that's extremely disparate from the rest of it, in that it's enjoyable. Again, except for Demi Moore, who I do find
it's enjoyable in spite of itself.
That's true.
Because you're like, oh, thank God the movie's not going on right now. We can stay with this, right? More Humpty Hump, and then he goes away, and it's kind of like shit.
Big Ben, what are you feeling?
I don't know. It feels to me like, like Ghostbusters, like wasn't how it originally was intended. Like they're supposed to be in space at some point, and then like people come into Aykroyd and sort of restrain him a little bit. I feel like that did not happen in this film, and it's just so weird and out there, and it really needed a cohesive vision to make it come through. I have to go guilty. I do not like this film, and I think if people do like it, they like it because it's bad.
Ryan?
Okay, so I hate this movie, but the defense had an answer for practically everything that the prosecution raised. And I tend to support the arguments that make the most sense in context, so I'm going to go not guilty.
Okay. It's up to me. Thanks. I hate that.
You're welcome. You could have saved me for last, but you didn't. That's on you.
I can't. I'm the foreperson. There's again, I want to like this movie, but especially when Aykroyd says it's supposed to be a comedy, then it fell on its face flat because it's just not funny. I do like the production value a bit, but it's wildly expensive. So yeah, I don't think it's enough to take it by. I'm going to have to go guilty.
Okay.
Yeah. Damn shame. Let's get out there and tell that very handsome judge, Ben. You're very handsome.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus Nothing But Trouble, we find the defendant guilty of being a bad movie.
Very well. The verdict is so rendered. As punishment, I sentenced Dan Aykroyd to do 4 more Yogi Bear movies. Court is adjourned.
Oh, that's terrible.
Who's being
That's
punished
worse
there?
than death.
Well, you don't have to watch them. He just has to do them.
Oh, poor Dan Aykroyd. Oh, poor man.
They'll be out there. Someone's being punished. Mumbly, Mumbly.
This is Mumbly Mumblerson reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice. Still J. Schlender, would you care to share your thoughts on the jury's verdict?
Oh, Mumbly, so good to see you. How's your mother?
Oh, she's great. How's yours?
Oh, not bad at all. I gotta say, I'm very happy with the verdict, obviously. It was a good, just verdict, and I would like to tip my hat to the opposing counsel. She put up a remarkably good case, a very good, coherent case. If you had to make a case for why this movie's good, that would be the case, and I just don't think it was enough to get there today, and I accept that. I think I had a good jury today, and a very handsome, non-penis-nosed judge that guided the proceedings. So, thank you and take care.
Thank you, I guess. And here comes Divinity Rose. This evening, can we get a word on how you feel about today's verdict?
Yeah, of course. Mistrial! I call mistrial! Mistrial, because this has been argued in this court before in an alternate universe. Clearly
fair.
It was biased. Clearly it was biased, and I think that the jury members have possibly seen the film before, and when you've seen the film yourself, your own feelings will get in the way. I call mistrial.
Oh, well, we see every movie we do in this
I
film,
know.
by the way.
Yeah, I know. Mistrial all your movie cases.
Oh, no. What a horrible precedent.
I've set a new precedent for this podcast.
This is going to be the jumping off point for Reels of Justice 2000. We were just talking about this.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's all we have from the courthouse today. Let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis. Mumblers and out.
Mumbly. He'll know what to do.
Great.
But
The
that
hero
was
we
great.
need.
Yeah, I'm glad we did this one again, only because I think it's a movie that needs to be talked about. Because I do think there was somewhere down there, but it's like Aykroyd saying in a interview that he didn't think it was a horror, which is strange because I've read him saying that it's a mix of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and like Beetlejuice and stuff like that. Why if he had leaned more into it being more horrifying, it might have.
Well,
been
apparently it
almost
was
a
an
success.
R-rated movie, and then it was re-edited because the violence was too graphic. At least that's what I read.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then I think there is a cut here somewhere that might have been decent.
But he's been on record saying he liked this cut that was out. That's the whole thing. He's happy with it.
I agree. I think Dan Aykroyd might be a tremendous moron. So I'm willing to go on that record. It sounds like he's kind of a dipshit, which is a shame because I love Dan Aykroyd, but he's wrong. I mean, it's nothing that he showed in this movie was funny. They could have had the potential for being scary, but it wasn't. So,
but do you feel like he might have just not had the pressure of needing to defend his project or always for the
and
sake
not
of
insult the studio
right,
execs?
not insult himself, not insult the studio, not insult because as a talent you also in a filmmaker you'd also have to worry about your next deal or your funding again, and not many studios are going to want to fund somebody that's like, oh yeah, I made a real piece of shit. They're just
especially when they put so much money on him the first time.
That's what. Yeah, like I mean, the way he
$40
played
million. This movie
didn't
cost
work out.
$40 million.
Yeah, and
That's
it only made back
insane.
8, so it lost.
That's
like
insane.
$32 million.
How much did Ghostbusters make? You got to offset it. This is just
sure, but
Plus,
Aykroyd
Ghostbusters
never
cost
directed
half
again.
as much too.
That's what I'm saying too. Aykroyd never directed again, so like whatever he did do, if this was damage control to make him look better at the studio, it didn't work. So. Anyway, I would like to see that uncut, violent.
Maybe he never wanted to direct again. Like if he only directed this.
That's entirely possible. I don't.
No,
think
and he's been on the record saying that. Yeah, he said he didn't even want to direct the first time too, and he said, "quote It was a mutual decision by the industry and myself." So
yeah,
to never direct again.
There's nobody. Basically, that comes down to nobody wanted to make this movie, and Aykroyd basically was like, "Then I'll have to just see it gets made."
Yeah, you could see it on Chevy Chase's face that no one wanted to make this movie, least of all him.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a movie Chevy Chase wanted to make?
No.
National Lampoon's Vacation.
Christmas Vacation.
The guy just hates working.
The guy does hate working. I will,
but he
agree,
loves cocaine.
That's true. That's true. Anyway, but very interesting trial. Demi Moore is innocent. And we don't have to talk about nothing but trouble. Ever
I know
again,
last time Rob said that he's like, he just kisses Demi Moore for no reason. I'm like, no reason. He's kissing Demi Moore because she's Demi Moore. She's hot.
I was a prosecutor. I had to say anything.
This guy got paid to kiss Demi Moore.
Anything.
I was like, come on. He's like, yeah, he's a jerk, and she looks hot, and every jerkish guy out there wants to live vicariously and believe they could be kissing Demi Moore. So
that is true.
Guilty.
I know I
guilty.
do. Anyway, so great case. But Divinity, what have you been doing lately? What's been keeping you busy?
Well, it's funny that a lot of people know I do comedy, but I also write and produce, and sometimes it veers away from comedy, and I'm actually working on a very serious project right now about PTSD, while also preparing to hopefully return to the stage more as restrictions have lifted from the pandemic. So,
can you tell us more about the PTSD thing, or is it so far?
It's a documentary style. It just covers. It's actually not just a film. It's set up to be an art installation where it goes through the stories of 10 different women and what it's like when they're triggered, when they have PTSD and they get triggered, just to help people understand that a little bit better. Because I think a lot of people, run around and say, "Oh, I'm so triggered now," but that actually does have a specific meaning for people with actual trauma response. Which honestly, everybody has some trauma response to some degree, just from life. But then there are people who've experienced a type of trauma that leaves a lasting impression.
Yeah, serious trauma. Yeah,
it can trigger a response in the moment that throws them back into that moment without any, like, their nervous system just kind of overwrites their current moment that they're in. So this helps people understand what it's like a physical response or an internal anxiety. I know this film. You're talking about like getting anxiety. I have PTSD because I had a crazy childhood, but I think that's why originally I had brought it up to prosecute it, was because when I saw it in my 20s, it definitely was very traumatic for me because I was living in this very tiny town in the mountains of Virginia. Not even a town, just on a mountain. And some of the stuff I was seeing there was a little terrifying, a little close to this pile, properties with piles of junk. And
I live next to a mansion that has a roller coaster and a thing that strips people of their bones.
Yes, yeah. So
they get all those lumberjacks from.
We all have our own personal Valkenvania, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Do you know where this installation is going to go up yet, or is it still kind of in the works like that?
No, it's still in the works. We're in. We've actually the pre-production was paid for with the grant that I was awarded for the project. Ooh. And then we've been fundraising for the production, and I've been in talks with the big art museum here in Louisville, Kentucky, where I live, and with a couple other venues in other states, some art galleries. So it's kind of as the production is completed, we would work on solidifying those.
Okay. Do you have any kind of, is it a fundraising, like an online fundraising, or like one of those
we just
things?
Finished one campaign, and then we'll be but people can still find me, and if they want to contribute to the project, they can still do that. It's tax deductible.
Sure. What's the name of the project? Call it out so people can Google it.
Yeah, it's called Triggered, and I need to reset the link, I think, but it's triggeredstories.com, which did take you to the fundraiser that was going, but also you can find me on Instagram, Divinity Rose IG. But mostly I'm, I guess, easy to contact through my website, divinityrose.com, which has a lot of my comedy stuff on it, some photos, some writing, stuff like that. So, because everything I do is pretty extreme. It's either exaggerated comedy or it's like paranormal and thriller horror stuff. So I'll probably write the next Nothing But Trouble, is what I'm saying.
Yes, Something But Trouble.
I'm writing the sequel.
Anything But Trouble.
I'm writing the sequel. Dick Nose Goes to New York. Yes.
Oh God.
And you say we never do it
lately. So.
And you say we never do anything of substance, Ryan.
I do.
Now
I learned a lot of myself through you.
I agree. You have. Now we always ask for a recommendation of a movie that you think our viewers should check out. So, what is a movie that you think our viewers should check out?
So, another film that left a lasting impression on me actually is what I brought up first about debating, but is not as mainstream. So, but I always tell people they should watch Monster Man. It's a horror comedy about a monster truck. And
a man?
And a man.
Is he a monster truck?
He's a monster of a man. I was just about to go. I was just about to. Yeah. So no. So I recommend that if you want to be traumatized, but if you're not into, and that one's also about like a small town. Anyways, there's a theme in my psyche, I guess. But yeah, last night actually, though, for the first time ever, I watched Muriel's Wedding, which was recommended to me, and I was told it was a comedy, and I guess it's a comedy, but it's really more of a drama, in my opinion, with some funny moments. But it was really good.
And that was what, Muriel's Wedding?
Muriel's Wedding. It's an Australian film from, I think, like 95, maybe. And it was in the 90s.
Is that Toni Collette? Is Toni Collette in that one?
I'm not sure. So I am horrible.
Ryan's in.
I am nowhere near your level of tracking talent the way you guys do. It's just
Ryan. You mean the way Ryan does? He does it for all of us.
Oh, he does it for all of you. Okay.
Yeah. Don't worry.
It has to be with Toni Collette. That's absolutely the one.
There you go.
But I'll tell you the hold on, the actress that is in this as her best friend as Rhonda, I thought it was Juliette Lewis at first. It's Rachel Griffiths. But she looks so much like Juliette Lewis in Natural Born Killers that I thought for sure it was her at first. But anyways, good film. Somebody told me I should watch it. So I did.
And someone was right.
I will pass it along as having one really funny scene. The rest of it's kind of amusing, but it really is more of a drama than a comedy in my opinion. But it's a good film all the way through. Like
dramedy.
There
you go. Dylan, you were the prosecutor, so what is your recommendation?
Well, I am going to recommend literally the next movie Chevy Chase did when he got done with Nothing But Trouble, and that is John Carpenter's. That's right, that John Carpenter, Memoirs of an Invisible Man. And the reason I'm recommending it today, I'm going a little off script, is I want to throw that out there as a challenge. I really want to do Memoirs of an Invisible Man on the show.
No.
So if you think you have what it takes to take on Ryan in Memoirs of an Invisible Man, reach out to Reels of Justice.
What, do you want Ryan to defend it?
Gauntlet has been thrown.
No, I just wanted to put Ryan on the spot because he was saying no so much. If Ben was saying no, I would put him on the spot.
Fucking
no, but it's something I want to. It's a movie that should be on the show, and so that's why I'm recommending it. So everyone see it and get ready for an upcoming case.
Nope.
I mean, I'm tempted to do it because Ryan doesn't want to.
When you first started to say that, I thought you were going to say the movie I'm recommending is the next film Chevy Chase does.
Whatever it is. Hot Tub Time Machine.
Chevy Chase is in it, so it has to be good.
You might have to wait.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think everyone knows not to work with him now. Big Ben, you were the judge. What have you got?
I'm going to go with my favorite Demi Moore film, and that's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. In my mind, it's one of the most underrated Disney films. Its flaws are that it's kind of over-the-top kid humor juxtaposed with intense, lustful drama, and they really should have focused more on the latter. But Frollo is my favorite character in both the book and the movie, and the scene where he sings about his lust for Esmeralda, blaming God for his desire rather than himself, is so good, it gives me chills every time. And the animation still holds up. If you haven't seen this as an adult, I recommend you head over to Disney Plus and watch this one with fresh eyes.
What's that song? Hellfire?
It's Hellfire.
Desire.
Nice.
There we go. Got Ben to sing a little bit.
Wow. Demi Moore played that guy? That's impressive.
Yeah. She's got range, doesn't she?
Very much so.
She's also the Gargoyles. It's weird.
All three of them?
All
Not
three of
Jason
them.
Alexander.
Did
That's
she also
excellent.
direct?
She might as
Yes,
well.
by weird coincidence, she did.
I think Demi Moore can do anything. Ryan, what have you got for us?
My recommendation this week is another Dan Aykroyd blank check movie, albeit one he didn't direct, thankfully, and that is John Landis's 1980 film, The Blues Brothers. There's something about the sheer destructive self-indulgence that is somehow alluring, and even with the director's cut topping off at almost 2.5 hours, there's almost no avenue it doesn't take in pursuit of slam-bang delirium. It's exhausting, which is unusual for a comedy, but in a good way. It's currently streaming on Fubo, whatever the fuck that is, and Peacock.
Peacock! Do you know what the budget was on Blues Brothers?
I think it was 30, 35. All I know is that they were halfway through shooting before they had a budget.
Yeah, because I mean,
And there was actually cocaine was actually factored into the budget. That's not
it
a
should
joke.
be.
That's
No,
the
and it
truth.
should be. That's part of catering, I believe.
Now that's some Hollywood accounting for you.
But I was just saying, all the cars they destroyed in that had to get the budget up pretty high, and if it was still less than Nothing But Trouble, it would make sense. Anyway, so I'll sit us on home here. My recommendation this week is 1989's Uncle Buck, starring John Candy and directed by John Hughes. Candy plays the titular character, Uncle Buck, the ideal role model for ne'er-do-wells with a heart of gold everywhere. This film puts him in the unenviable position of babysitting his brother's children while his bro is out of town, and along the way, he learns that responsibility isn't all that bad as long as you can do it extremely irresponsibly. It's one of my favorite Candy movies, and though it's not streaming for free anywhere, you may as well buy it so you can watch it again and again.
Candy.
You know, that's
movies.
funny. We all picked a different main character from Nothing But Trouble. We didn't plan that. That just happened.
That is true.
I planned it.
I'm just over here kicking myself as I'm wont to do with my PTSD. Like, damn it! I should have picked a character from Nothing But Trouble and recommended a movie about that. Now
Well,
I'm
we
the
gotta-
fun dump.
Were the Brazilians and anything else you could
Taylor Negrin
Where's
was in a bunch
Seinfeld,
of
I
stuff.
think.
Taylor Negrin was in a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
he was a journeyman.
Yeah, exactly. Remember,
Well,
we
there you
looked
go.
up his IMDb during the movie. So,
As we are wont to do.
yes. Anyway, but with that, we are all out of show for the week, but we want to thank our guest, Divinity Rose, for joining us.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for having
much.
me. Yeah.
We hope you come back too,
Yeah.
anytime. And we hope everyone else will also join us again as well as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Cocaine.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.